Hey guys, what's going on? It's Eli, back with another review video, and continuing on reviewing Halloweenish films on the weekdays. So that's right guys, yes, as was clearly teased in the last review video, this next classic Universal monster film that I am now about to review, not to mention, it is celebrating its anniversary, and this being regarded as one of the top best sequels of horror films, and yeah, does that sound right to you? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. There's no doubt, because yeah, it's up there, you know, being one of the top best sequels. You know, even where Nostalgia Critic rate this, you know, in the top 11 best movie sequels. But yeah, but overall, it would be without a doubt one of the, as I said, one of the top best, you know, sequels of horror films. And in the case of the Universal horror films, yeah, the classic ones. So yes, that's right, guys. I am now finally reviewing from 1939, Bride of Frankenstein. Grrr, yeah. So, Bride of Frankenstein. The first things I have to say about Bride of Frankenstein, well, I mean, again, there's no denying that it is another classic and fantastic, you know, masterpiece of the lineup of the Universal monster films. And this being, of course, the first of the many sequels of 1933's Frankenstein, and the fact that, rightfully so, Bride of Frankenstein was once again directed by James Whale. Yeah, because James Whale, whom after directing the first Frankenstein film, he had no desire to direct another picture that would involve anything Frankenstein, and he would turn his attention to, say, The Invisible Man, which I did review that before if you want to go check it out. However, after some convincing and such, he would find himself back in the director's chair directing the first Frankenstein sequel, which being this. And it's great to see that he would come back to direct this. And yeah, because literally, with Bride of Frankenstein literally taking place right after the events of the first Frankenstein film. But yeah, but for me, of course, like, yeah, I mean, and having done a rewatch of this, it's fantastic, without a doubt. You know, everything that Bride of Frankenstein had to offer, and the fact that the titled character herself, the bride, she doesn't appear until at the very end of the movie, but until I get there, of course. But yeah, I mean, you know, for all of us who had not seen this movie until now, anybody like me, not seen this movie, but, you know, at the same time, before seeing the movie itself, you would see all the various photos, gifs, whatever, of the bride herself. And you wouldn't realize, and I didn't realize, that, yeah, she appears at the very end of the movie. But at the same time, it's worth the wait, and with what all the film itself has to offer, besides the titled character herself, because, you know, with what we see next with the characters of, say, you know, the monster himself, and, yep, the human characters, of course, from Henry Frankenstein, his now wife Elizabeth, and a few new faces that step in, what goes on with the villagers, and them once again having to deal with the monster wherever he pops in and such, just, yeah. Yeah, I mean, just overall, what more do I have to say? That, you know, Bride of Frankenstein, it's up there, being a, you know, masterpiece in the lineup of the classic Universal monster films. Just, yeah, there's no denying without a doubt. Yeah. Alright, so, with the first things I've had to say about Bride of Frankenstein now out of the way, now as always, for me, read the description / the story. Okay, so, after recovering from injuries sustained in the mob attack upon himself and his creation, Dr. Henry Frankenstein falls under the control of his former mentor, Dr. Preterius. Yeah, I think I'm saying that right. Who insists the now chastened, if I said that right, doctor to resume his experiments in creating new life. Meanwhile, the monster remains on the run from those who wish to destroy him without understanding that his intentions are generally good. Yeah. Despite his lack of socialization and self-control. Okay. So, now with reading the description / the story out of the way, let us now dive in / break down the film itself, as always. Okay. Well, one of the first things we start off with is, and after the credits roll, and mainly it's just the cast, that we get, including, at the very end of, the bottom of the cast list, the monster's bride, question mark, because we don't see whom is credited, whom plays the bride's monster. Yeah. But, with that, and the way the movie opens, well, we actually see the author herself of the book of Frankenstein, Mary Shelley, and Mary Shelley being portrayed by the late Elsa Lanchester. Yeah, so, and yeah, it's obvious that, with Elsa Lanchester, she also plays the titled character, but yeah. So it's nice to see that we get to see more of Elsa Lanchester shine in Bride of Frankenstein besides playing the title character, because where she gets to have some dialogue and, she plays, who else than Mary Shelley, yeah. And she, such a sweet and talented actress, and for us Disney fanatics, we would know her best being Katie Nana in Mary Poppins. Yeah, that was one of my first early films, and I'm sure that goes for a lot of us, where we've known her from, and yeah, the fact that she was once the Bride of Frankenstein, then she would go on to be in, say, Mary Poppins, very interesting. Yeah, who'd have thought? But yeah, so Mary Shelley, whom, along with her husband and a friend of theirs, they're talking about, say, Mary's published book, Frankenstein. It is, soon to be published, and they're discussing it, and, they, there's a bit of recap on, the first Frankenstein film, and, because archival footage of, certain moments in the first Frankenstein film, and Mary Shelley, well, she knows that that's not the end of what happened in the first book, because, there's more to tell, and thus, she tells the continuing story to both her husband and their friend, and, because, Mary's husband being Percy Shelley, being played by the late Douglas Walton, and Lord Byron being played by the late Gavin Gordon. Yeah, so, again, with Mary telling both of them on what happens next immediately after the events of the first story, and with, what happened at the end of the first film, where the windmill was burned, and with it, the monster, and supposedly, the monster was finished once and for all. Well, I think it's obvious that no, not exactly, because, so, we immediately start off right after the climax, and, and it's revealed that both the monster and Henry, they survived the burning windmill, and Henry now, having recuperated at home, well, he wants to abandon his experiments altogether. Yeah, because after what happened, all hell broke loose. It went wrong with his experiment, bringing, a body to life, which being the monster. Yeah, all went horribly wrong. He's done once and for all, and just wants to live a happy life, and, the fact that he's soon to finally be married to his beloved Elizabeth. And as for the monster, because, well, Maria's parents, the little girl whom Frankenstein, I presume unintentionally drowned, Maria's father, Hans, he wants to make sure that the monster is done for, dead, and so on. And Hans, being played by Reginald Barlow, and his wife, being credited Hans' wife, being played by Mary Gordon, Han is determined to see if the monster is dead once and for all, but he slips and falls and goes down where there's water, and there's an owl that's present down there. And yeah, it doesn't take too long for Hans to come face to face with the monster, and for the monster to drown Hans. Then, when the monster, rises out of the underground part, well, yeah, he scares Hans' wife and causes her to fall, and she falls to her death and drowns as well. So, yeah. That's 3 in a row whom have drowned. Yeah, like their daughter, the parents as well. And also, yeah, Henry Frankenstein, once again being played by Colin Clive. And, not to mention that there are a good majority of cast members whom, yeah, they didn't come back from the first Frankenstein film. Yeah, because new cast members coming in and, yeah, like Hans... Maria's parents, but also, most prominently, Elizabeth. Yeah, this time Elizabeth being played by Valerie Hobson. Yeah, and, Valerie Hobson, with what she brought to the performance of Elizabeth, I mean, it's like, I don't know, it's like, I can't really tell a difference, because I think that, yeah, Valerie did pretty good, being the new Elizabeth in the sequel. So, yeah. So, with Henry just, again, wanting to abandon all that he's done, give up his days in life as, a scientist and with his experiments, just, yeah. But that would soon, it would not last that long. And not to mention that, yeah, there's another victim that notices and realizes that, yeah, the monster is still alive and walking, and that being Minnie. Minnie being played by Una O'Connor. Yeah, so, and not to mention, there are a few cast members who had previously worked with James Whale in The Invisible Man. So, yeah, and they come back working with James Whale in this. So, yeah. So, again, Una O'Connor, who plays Minnie, yeah, because she sees the monster and tries to alert the people, but the butler, being credited as the butler, being played by the late Lucien Prival, he finds this rubbish and tells Minnie to shut up, just, yeah, nonsense. The monster's alive after the burned windmill, just, yeah. But little did they know at first that, yeah, the monster was still up and running. Anyways, but, yeah, so, and as I said, when Henry, hoping that, his days as a mad scientist and doing experiments is done once and for all, no, not really, because, well, he would meet with, someone he knew from the university who was a doctor, but then got booted out of the university, and that being Dr. Septimus Paratorus, yeah, if I'm getting his full name right, pronouncing it, but again, you know me sometimes. And the Doctor being played by the late Ernest Thetcher. Yeah, I think I'm saying his last name right. So he comes in and, well, he does not want Henry to stop doing experiments and so on, and, mentions to Henry that he tried to do the same. He did the same thing like what Henry did, bringing life, and, when a moment where the Doctor shows Henry, his experiments, however, they're not full-sized bodies, they're, tiny people in jars, like one being a king and a queen, just, yeah, pretty interesting. And, looking at the visual effects and the technique of, those little characters in those jars, and a couple of moments where the Doctor is, like, most prominently, he's, like, grabbing a hold of the king, because the king, madly in love with the queen and such. And the king, being played by A.S. Pop Byron, yeah. And, yeah, and the queen, she, the queen being played by the late Joanne Woodbury, and there was also a devil whom almost looks like and resembles the Doctor. Yeah, the Doctor pointing this out. The devil in the jar being played by Peter Shaw, and there was also a mermaid, and, well, I think it's obvious that in the jar where the mermaid is, it's filled with water, and being credited as the Little Mermaid. The Little Mermaid being played by Josephine McKim. Yeah, I think I said that right. But, yeah, so with what the doctor shows to Henry, and when he mentions that, he, along with Henry's help, wants to create a mate for the monster that Henry brought to life and created. Created/brought to life, I should say. Yeah, and whom would soon be known as the bride, of course. So, yeah. But Henry just, yeah, throughout the film, and when we would come back to them at times before things do get intense, Henry, it's obvious that Henry, he just wants no part of this whatsoever. Meanwhile, with what's going on with the monster, yeah, because most of the time in this movie, it's just the monster roaming around, parts of the woods, and where he would encounter some people, like, most prominently, he encounters a shepherdess, yeah, I said that right, being played by the late Annie Darling, where, yeah, she's, herding some sheep, and they're lambs, and, well, with her seeing the sight of the monster, of course, she lets out a horrific scream, and, she falls into a river, and, the monster trying to help her, but, yeah, just her being terrified, scared to death out of the monster, and when locals with guns, rifles, they come in, and with them noticing the monster, just, yeah, no matter where he goes throughout this film, everybody being horrified by the sight of the monster. And when word would be officially spread to the villagers and the attention to the burgomaster, being played by E.E. Clive, yeah, now they mean business to, once and for all, to finally take down the monster. And, because they thought they did when, they got him caught in the windmill and they burned it down. Well, that didn't defeat the monster. So yeah, now this time they're determined to do so. In fact, there is a moment where they try to lock up the monster. They finally capture him at one point, and they put him in chains, they put him in a dungeon, but it doesn't take the monster that long to break out of the chains and, flee from the village. Yeah. Okay, and now let's talk about a most memorable part, in this Frankenstein film, and that being the blind man. Yes, as we all know, Frankenstein's monster encounter with the blind man, which being named Hermit. Yeah. Now, yeah, I know, because for a lot of us, we know him best being named the blind man, but his actual name being Hermit, and Hermit being played by the late O.P. Heggie. Yeah, I think I probably said his last name right. So, that whole sequence, and yeah, where the monster would come across the blind hermit, and yeah, especially he's, fascinated with the sound of the violin and such. Yeah, because the monster whom stumbles upon the blind man, which being Hermit, who, unaware of his appearance, shows him kindness. Yeah, for once, there's someone that shows kindness to the monster. And because, Frankenstein's monster being misunderstood, and only the blind man, out of all the characters, is very gentle and kind and sweet to the monster, and as it should. And I'm sure, yeah, for us, the audience, we know that, but yet at the same time, we know that the monster just not intentional and just being triggered and, because of certain things that happen. You know what I mean? Just, yeah. But, yeah, and the old man, he would then teach the monster to speak. And this is where we get to hear the monster speak words. And fun fact, and of course can't forget to mention him because, yeah, obviously, the late legendary Boris Karloff reprising the iconic role of Frankenstein's monster, he was against this at first, where the monster in this would speak some words. But I'm pretty sure with what I read, yeah, he seemed to then be okay with it later on. And yeah, because the way that the monster would talk and learn words goes well with his character. Yeah. But anyway, so yeah. So again, with the old man teaching Frankenstein's monster to speak, also enjoying food, and, smoking cigars, and even when the blind man, teaches the monster that fire can sometimes be good. Yeah, because as we all know at first, Frankenstein's monster was terrified of fire, but the old man, the blind man / hermit, rest assured, yeah, informs the monster that, yeah, fire's not all bad. It can be good sometimes. So, yeah. And also, showing Frankenstein's monster on playing the violin. And yeah, this brief moment of genuine acceptance is crushed. Yeah, it's crushed. And actually, because before that, the monster actually spend the evening in the house of the blind man. In fact, a moment where after the blind man tucked Frankenstein's monster into bed, he was praying to God, and yeah, but by the next day, all of that nice, sweet moments between Hermit and the monster is crushed when two passerby, if I pronounce that right, discover the monster. They discover the monster and attack him. In fact, jeez Louise, and when they notice that Hermit is blind, they immediately assume that the monster brought the blind man to life with body parts and such. But oh my gosh, why would they think that? Even like the monster, there's a shot where he did react to that, I'm pretty sure. And yeah, in fact, the monster saved Hermit's life, but that didn't last long when, yeah, it would end with Hermit's cottage, yeah, that being the other way to call it, yeah, his cottage. It would burn down, and yeah, the heartbroken monster would flee once more, and those two guys, they would escort Hermit out of there. And yeah, just Hermit being upset by what has happened, and even though he couldn't see, still, he can feel and sense all that was happening. And when knowing that the monster was a gentle giant. Yeah, so yeah, dainty as a flower. But anyways, okay, so what happens next? And to speed things up some, because yeah, the alliance with Paterius, yeah, the doctor. So there is a moment, and with the monster still fleeing and hiding, well, the monster would find his way to a graveyard, and yeah, when he's hiding in the graveyard, and he hides when he hears a couple of voices coming in, because yeah, the doctor, along with two henchmen, which being, Carl and Ludwig, and Carl being played by Dwight Frye, whom was in the first Frankenstein film as Fritz, and that same year he was Renfield in Dracula. So yeah, and as we all know, because Fritz, he met his demise, and yeah, now we have, I guess you could say, the next Fritz, which being Carl, and yeah, being played by Dwight Frye. That's nice to see that, yeah, Dwight Frye came back for the sequel, and yeah, just playing a completely different character. And Ludwig being played by Ted Billings. So they're the two henchmen, and, working for the doctor to retrieve the perfect body for the bride of Frankenstein. And also, the doctor and Henry, they were dealing with a heart and, the right heartbeat, and for the body. But yeah, so with Carl Ludwig, assisting the doctor to, search for a perfect body, and yeah, they would, but even, say, a little later when Carl would have to, get another body and such, but yeah, so with them retrieving a body and taking the coffin back to the castle in Henry's laboratory, well, in the graveyard still, yeah, the monster, he would meet with the doctor, and yeah, and basically, Dr. Paterius, he convinces the monster that he will create a female companion, a friend, yeah, as the monster says, friend, and the lonely monster, he would agree to help Paterius blackmail Henry into assisting them, because yeah, and because what would happen next, and with the blackmail and kidnapping, because yeah, Paterius and the monster, they work together by kidnapping Henry's wife, Elizabeth. Paterius has Henry, being kept busy, and even when Paterius, he introduces Henry to the monster, and, trying to still convince Henry to help by creating the bride. And again, because throughout the film and when we would come back to Henry, just wanting no part of it whatsoever, but Briterius is on to Henry, and by, showing him that the monster is present, and, well, by ordering the monster to go to another part of the building where, the monster would capture Elizabeth, and this would force Henry to resume with his experiments. I mean, it's obvious that out of everything to Henry, what would convince him and really just, and what he cares about the most, of course, is his now wife, Elizabeth. So he'll do anything to prevent Elizabeth being hurt or be killed. So, And though initially reluctant, if I said that right, the brilliant Henry is ultimately, he's drawn back to his dark work. And, this was forced upon him. Well, because of his love and care for Elizabeth. So, So then, the life-giving storm, because, during a, fierce thunderstorm, the two doctors, they complete their work on the female creature composed of various body parts, and in a scene mirroring, I'm having trouble saying that word, but, mirroring the original film's climax, they hoist the creature, and with the thunderstorm, a couple of kites, high into the tower, and where, of course, the lightning strikes, and, boom, it brings her to life. But even during that, there was a moment where the monster came in, and he was going after, Carl and Ludwig, and he throws Carl to his death on top of the tower. What for? I mean, I guess that's just the monster for you, but the monster being very impatient, and there was a moment where he came into the laboratory and forcing Henry to work, and even Briterius, he wasn't gonna put up with the monster's behavior, and gave him a drink, and just made him be conked out and such. And also, with what's happened to Elizabeth, well, she's been placed in a cave, tied up, and she's being spared, and as long as Henry proceeds with, bringing, the monster's friend, his mate, to life. And at least Briterius is at least being, kind of, sparing Henry's wife, because, because with Briterius, it's obvious that, sure, he's one of the main antagonists, but he's just corrupted so much with, bringing things to life, back from the dead, just really being embroidered with the scientific work and being a mad scientist. That's all it is. And then what happens next, and to still speed things up some, the birth of the bride, because, well, after, mission accomplished, they succeeded with the thunderstorms and the kites, everything, high on top of the tower. Well, they would then unwrap the bride, and again, they have succeeded in creating a beautiful but animalistic woman, and of course, Henry delivering his iconic line, it's alive, she's alive, as he says, And this is where we see the bride herself after such a long wait. But the fact that this movie's not really a long movie, but still, all that buildup, we finally see the titled character herself, and again, Elsa Lanchester playing the monster's mate, as she's credited right here, but most prominently, the Bride of Frankenstein. And just the famous shots of Elsa Lanchester as the bride, her looking around, her iconic hairdo, her dress, to resemble a bride. Oh, just fantastic. And, well, with what would happen next, the monster now witnessing and meeting his special friend, his bride, well, when he approaches his new mate and asks, his mate, friend, well, she is repulsed by his appearance and, screaming. And, her scream being iconic as well, without a doubt. Just, and the way Elsa Lanchester delivered it, fantastic. Yeah. And yeah, the bride, not only would she scream, but she would also hiss. Yeah. That too being such an iconic thing from the bride herself. And, to go ahead and mention this, I'm sure that for some of you who have gone to Universal Studios and have, met with the bride, oh yeah, because, the cast members at Universal Studios doing a fantastic job bringing those Universal monsters to life. And yeah, especially on account of those who portray the bride of Frankenstein herself. Fantastic. Yeah. But anyways, so with her screaming and hissing, and yeah, rejecting him outright, and to which the monster cries, "She hates me," and, like others, as he says. And yeah, then it would lead to the lab's destruction. Up to the climax, because now that the bride has come to life, the bride has rejected, the repulsive side of the monster. Well, this would lead to, where the monster, now despondent and heartbroken, he gives Henry and Elizabeth a chance to escape because, by this point, however she did it, which, she did a great job at, she managed to untie herself, escape the cave, and make her way to the castle. And when she and Henry would be reunited, the monster, good on him, where he spares and lets Henry and Elizabeth go free, live their happy lives. Go, you live, as he says. And the monster, he's about to pull down a lever, and triggering the destruction of the laboratory, and with it, the entire tower/castle. Even Dr. Preterius, he warns the monster that if he pulls down that lever, the entire laboratory, and with it the tower, will be in all atoms, explosions, and so on. Yeah. And even the monster, he told, because after the monster told both Henry and Elizabeth to go, you live, he then turned his, attention to Preterius and the bride, telling both of them, you stay, we belong dead. And yep, then we would see the monster pulling down the lever, boom, the castle/the tower and the laboratory, all of it. It explodes. All three of them, the monster, the bride, and the doctor, they all die with the tower exploding. And yeah, and where right before that happened, the bride, she did hiss. So, yeah. And yeah, it's great to see that, well, finally, both Henry and Elizabeth, they can finally have their happily ever after. So yeah, the nightmare is officially over. Or is it? Because, well, obviously, that would not be the last time we would see the monster himself. And especially when Boris Karloff would come back a couple of more times to play the iconic role of the monster himself. Yeah, but just, what a heck of a way to end off the movie itself. Just, and with this is a Universal Picture showing, and with seeing the cast once more, and still, even when the movie finishes, the Bride of Frankenstein still, having the question mark. I mean, you would think, right, that she would now be credited, but maybe, I'm sure to the audience, especially those who first saw the movie in 1935, I'm sure it didn't take them that long to realize that, oh, it's Elsa Lanchester, whom we saw at the start of the movie as Mary Shelley. Yeah, I'm pretty sure, and I'm sure the same would go for you as of today, but yeah, again, what a heck of a great way to end off the movie itself, without a doubt, of course. But yeah, Bride of Frankenstein is, again, without a doubt, a classic Universal horror film masterpiece, and this being also a sequel masterpiece altogether. Yeah, everything that Bride of Frankenstein had to offer, with James Whale's direction, the great cast of talents from Boris Karloff, Colin Clive, and with new faces that step in from, say, Valerie Hobson, Ernest Thetcher, Elsa Lanchester as the title character herself, Gavin Gordon, Douglas Walton, Una O'Connor, E.E. Clive, and also Dwight Fry, who returns for this, Reginald Barlow, and Ted Billings, everybody that was, a part of this film, the characters they played, fantastic, top-notch. The climax, the suspense, the music and score, the storyline, everything about Bride of Frankenstein. So memorable and fantastic, all of the above. And I'm giving The Bride of Frankenstein, well, why not? Of course. 10 out of 10 stars. Yes. 10 out of 10 stars for Bride of Frankenstein. And what about you guys? What did you think of Bride of Frankenstein itself? Is it one of your top favorites of the classic Universal horror films? One of your top favorite film sequels? One of your top favorite Frankenstein films? What are some of your favorite moments? The characters? Your first impression when you first watched this, and if you were surprised to see that, holy crap, the title character appears at the very end of the movie. Just, favorite lines, and I assume you would have seen the first Frankenstein film before this. Yeah, but just, again, overall, with that being said, again, what did you think of Bride of Frankenstein itself with what I've had to say, my review, and what did you think of my review? Leave comments and give this review video a like, as always. And so, guys, with all that being said, thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed my review of Bride of Frankenstein. More review videos are coming your way. They're going to be awesome. Keep looking forward, and I will see you guys in the next video / review. And, well, continuing on with the Halloweenish reviews on the weekdays, stay tuned because what I will be reviewing next is yet another classic Universal horror film. I mean, nowadays, it's considered a Universal film, but back then, it was once a Paramount film. And it's one of those Hitchcock films that is perfect to watch around Halloween, with no doubt. And let's just say, this one Hitchcock film has to do, with Norman? Yeah, I think it's obvious. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Just, again, stay tuned for that. Take care. Happy anniversary to Bride of Frankenstein. And peace out. Grrr!